So this is the Staying Motivated panel with Tim Donley. He's asked us to stay around so he can bounce conversation off of us, and because we're very important people.
You guys are extremely important.
Yeah. If you don't know, Tim is the founder of Donley Time Foundation, the developers of Boss 101, the person who made the wonderful logo this year, the winner of the IRX 15 Most Revolutionary Game Award, and also all-around nice guy.
Wow,
Tim.
That's how I used to introduce myself. All around nice. Not all the stuff though.
That's how you should pick up. That's how you should pick up women. Just go through all that thing, and by the time you're finished, they've already walked away.
Yeah, yes, that's how to get them to pick themselves up and leave the room.
All right, so we'll leave it to you to start off.
Yeah. I forgot what was the. Do you guys even know? Do you remember what my talk was last year? I think it was just making games, like just getting into games and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it was like based off of the articles that you wrote on the site.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my God, I wanted to talk, a little bit this year with you guys here too, because I know you guys are a good example of staying motivated because you're starting something. I mean, you've been 2 years now.
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years, and I mean, I think something that I thought about when I was, as we're finishing Boss 101, and we do actually estimate it'll be done this year, and it's been a long road. I mean, you guys know that we've talked about having this thing finished a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and it was a different game back then. It was a lot different game, and what happened was about a year ago we sat down, played the game, looked at it, and there was that moment of, okay, we had this plan, it was going to go about this long, and then we thought, well, to make it amazing, it's going to have to go a little longer, and amazing being having features that people expect, having features we'd expect, having things that we want in a game. And so we're just said, well, let's eat it and do it. Eat the time and money and cost of development and do it, because the game we would have shipped last year, I think it would have been okay. And that's my opinion. I don't know. Maybe it would have been a million seller. I doubt it. But I think the deal was we were looking at another year of development, and hence the talk here, staying motivated. Because you kind of hit that point. I think in any game development, any creative endeavor, maybe even in you guys with
where you're just like come on, just do it.
Well, maybe what you're doing. Maybe if a subscriber count or just looks or whatever, it doesn't go quite what you think, you just start asking yourself maybe one day quietly in bed, looking at the ceiling, going, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to keep this thing going. And for us, it was like we just felt it was the right thing to do. I felt like personally for me, all the games that I've ever liked, it always seems like the developer cared, and it always seems like he put in some extra effort. And I really felt like, well, we're never going to be a Nintendo or a Blizzard or maybe even a Riot or Valve, I guess would be a good example, unless we just do some of the stuff they're willing to do, which is they're just willing to sort of say, hey, this needs more time. And it isn't always about bugs. It's not always about that it's a bad game. It just doesn't have enough in it, and it's just too bland. And I think that's where Boss 101 was. So basically, the last year, the staying motivated part, I think that some things I thought about, and maybe people that have developed games or they're looking into doing games could attest to, obviously, number one, you really have to be doing what you love. Like, you can't be doing this for the money, because if you're starting out with the money thing, you're just going to be very disappointed from the get-go. Like, you may make the next, Half-Life or Left 4 Dead or something like that, but it's probably not going to happen on the first try. It may happen on the second, and maybe you'll get lucky. But if you love what you're doing, if you're really excited about it, it makes all the difference. It's what keeps me up at night. Boss 101 has just been exciting. Now it's getting into the grit. Go ahead.
Oh no, that reminds me. Yesterday. Pixel Art Academy. What was his name? Matei. Matei talked about a quote from Ira Glass about how with creative people doing creative things, there is this gap of work where it's not quite there, and most people stop at that gap. And the only way to get out of that gap is to just keep making things, and soon enough, here we go. Matei's in the chat already. And once you understand the aesthetic that you're going for, and you really focus in on how you can do things, and you get better at doing them by doing them over and over and over again, all of a sudden at a certain point that will, come back, and you will start to hit those points that you're looking for.
Exactly. I mean, that's the there's that saying. I mean, when I was in art school, industrial design, there was that. It's passed around. Everybody's heard this. Like every artist or every idea is like there's 1,000 bad drawings before you get to the good one, or 10,000 that you've just got to get through, and you can't. There's no shortcutting it. I mean, you really just have to kind of dig down and do it. I mean, I think one thing also that I really have come to learn, and now mind you, I've been in games since maybe 94, so a little over 22 years now. So it's and then before that I did toy design for 5 years. And I think one thing that I've really seen is that there isn't really any shortcut to making something awesome. I mean, it's like building a pyramid. You're just gonna have to move them big ass stones and push them all over the place and just get a beat down. I mean, I wish I could say that there's some amazing game engine or some amazing program that you could just buy, or maybe talk to one person one day and somehow figure it all out. But a lot of it is just practice. I mean, it's the closest thing the easiest thing I think people would understand is, nobody would sit down at a piano and just expect somebody to play amazingly in one day, or read a book and be amazingly good at playing the piano, or be an artist, or be a weightlifter, or be anything like that. You'd realize there's some intrinsic understanding there where to be an amazing sprinter, you're going to have to get out on that field in the morning and practice, or you're going to have to put in a lot of time. Game development, I think people are coming around to it, but even when I started, I always thought, oh man, it's just press some buttons, get the right 3D program, get a degree, you're just going to be in on it, and it's going to be amazing. But that isn't really what it's like. I mean, it is a lot closer to maybe playing a musical instrument, or being an athlete. I mean, by that I mean there's a lot of time and practice. And once you realize that, it kind of helps. It's just that moment of like, you get over that quick fix stuff. You get over the expectation that everything you do is just perfect and it's all got to be done in a week or two, and you just start going, well, I'm just going to make something good. I'm going to not look at the clock so much and just worry about making that as well as I possibly can. I have a book that I read once, and the quote, the chapter was called "Do It to a Finish," and it was one of those books that like really affected me. The book is called "Pushing to the Front." But the point of that chapter was this guy goes on this huge rant about how nobody does anything to a finish. Everybody just wants a quick answer. Everybody wants to do everything super fast. And he talks about how all these little things add up. Like if you want to do something amazing, you're going to have to do it to a finish. And he starts by, you just got to take yourself seriously. I think that was his main goal of the chapter was, and by that he's like, nobody's ever going to take you seriously unless you take yourself seriously. In other words, if you're shortcutting everything in your life, it's going to exude itself into everything you do, including your work, including your relationships. And he's like, you just got to start with yourself and say, look, I'm going to make something amazing, so I'm going to start acting, like I'm. And it sounds corny to say, well, I'm just going to act amazing and then I'm Superman. And it's not quite that way, but it's more like you just, you take care of yourself. You take care of what you're doing. You take pride in what you're doing. You know that like, you aren't going to just cheese out on everything. Another famous thing that I read that was really important to me was this guy who's this old cabinet maker in Germany. It's like this old ancient story. I'm sure there's variations of it. This old cabinet maker, he'd make these amazing wood cabinets for people, sold them at this incredible price. This guy comes and goes, I would love to interview you. How do you do your thing? And this could be game making, this could be anything. He goes, how do you do your thing? He's like, well, let me show you. I'll walk you through the process. And the guy's following his process, and the guy's finishing these cabinets, doing all this crazy stuff. And then near the end of it, the guy takes the cabinet, the part that gets shoved against the wall, he turns it around, he starts polishing it up, lacquering it up. And then the guy goes, what are you doing that for? Like, he goes, that's just going to be shoved up against the wall, and nobody's going to see that. And he goes, there's two people that are going to see that. He goes, me and God. And that's all that matters. He goes, if I know it's there, he goes, I know it's there. He goes, I don't want anything that looks crappy going out under my name. And I feel like that's sort of the attitude that if you can take that attitude and say, I won't let something crappy come out, you're at least on your way, and you may not see the success right away, but you will see the success. And again, speaking as somebody who, when I started, I was all about, making money. I was much more about like making money, progressing my career, and just earning a lot of cash. And that happened, but it wasn't very fulfilling. And even now, now I'm in my 40s, late 40s, almost 50, and I want to I'm back doing this, and this is more like what I did when I was 15 than what I was doing maybe 5 years ago.
And you're having the best time of your life, right?
Yes, and when you're a kid, the kids got it right, man. Watch what kids do. They know what's up. They'll go out and play and run around all day and fart around, and they'll make little creative things with Legos. They got the right ideas.
Did you ever notice that, like, with pretty much anything creative? Because I've heard the same suggestion. Watch the kids for voiceovers when I was taking voiceover training classes. You watch the kids and they have all the imagination, they have all the energy. They don't have any inhibitions about what they're doing. They just do it because it's fun and they like it.
Yes,
that's for like anything creative.
Well, part of that I think stems from the responsibility sucks aspect. I mean, like we as adults have certain expectations put upon us in our professional life and by other adults and other people whose opinions matter to us for whatever reason. And so, over time we go from having that kind of carefree, like, yeah, let's do this because it'll be fun and we're gonna make a dragon out of Legos or whatever, and we over time get to if it doesn't have the instructions, obviously it's not going to be worthwhile because we get judged externally for that. And so I think that's kind of why that plays into. I just wanted to comment on that.
Oh, no, I think that's exactly it. I feel that there's a lot of pressure to, when you have you want to do something, maybe you want to write a book or you want to, again, make a game. There's this internal pressure we put on ourselves to sort of see the results quickly, see something quickly, and then sort of label that something is quite good or finished. And it's fine to say, well, that's good in the sense of progress towards my goal, but it isn't necessarily final and finished. And a lot of times when when we're working on the game, we take great joy in every little victory each week, every little bug that's fixed, every little feature that goes in. There's always a sense of like, man, that's awesome. We're moving towards that goal. But we keep it in mind, like we're heading towards the goal versus this is like a stake in the ground. We're finished. And I think a lot of it is that, what's kept us going on Boss 101 is just saying, let's just make this thing as awesome as we can so that when we're done, we can't make any excuse that we didn't try our hardest. And I feel like that's the main goal, is that when Boss 101 hits the shelves, and Steam in this case, we say, this is it, man. We did our very, very best. We don't have any excuses and I've shipped, I think, about 15 or 20 game, maybe more than that. I don't know. There's big games. I mean, I've been associated with other games that I've seen their development. So I've probably seen the development of about 40 or 50 games in my career in terms of shipping. And the biggest regret, and which is what I talk with Joshua Manone about, and I say, the biggest regret you're ever going to have is that the minute you hit submit and the game goes out, there's always that minute where you go, oh shit, we should have done it.
Yeah,
Level 3.
A rule. Yeah, there's a rule when you write a book, and this is true with every single person. You write a book, as soon as you publish that book, you never open that book ever again, because you will open to a random page and the first thing you will see is an error that needs to be fixed.
Yes,
it happened for real. One of my friends wrote a book, and he opened it up, and I told him like weeks before it was out, I was just like, you can't look at it again, and he goes, yeah, I know, and then like 1 week, like a week or two later, he goes just like, how you said that if you open the book you'll find an error? I found one, and it's like page 4 or whatever. It's like really easy to find. But like, you also can't let that hold you back. You can't let your shortcomings stop you, because like with Indie Game Riot and IRX, we've been doing this for almost 100 episodes.
Sure.
And that's actually like a lot. Like you think of like, oh well, 100. There are podcasts with thousands of episodes, but like if you sit down and you do something almost every single week, for hours, hours a week for 2 years, you won't even realize that whatever you're doing is getting better.
Yeah.
Until you go back and you look, and especially with like Boss 101, I have no doubt in my mind that a year ago you could have shipped that game and people would have been like, yeah, this is really fun. But now with the game that you have, that you've still been working on, you can look back and be like, I am a better developer than I was a year ago, and I have a better vision for what I'm trying to find. So don't hold yourself back if you think this might actually be better, because you're probably right.
Yeah, nobody's gonna. All those failures or things that maybe anybody does that didn't quite achieve, those get buried in time and forgotten so quick. It's like only the ones that you really put in a lot of effort on and get remembered and recognized, those are the ones that count. So it's like you might as well go for it and make it count. Like, I mean, again, it's funny how I've changed, because in terms of the motivation for me used to be, just ship the game, because I coming from publishing, Sony, Microsoft, that kind of stuff, where they were like, this game's got to come out. This game has to be out soon. It's got to be fiscal year, this and that. And there's always a drive to get it to ship based off of, some wacky estimates. We sit in a conference room 2 years before the game is even released, 3 years sometimes, and come up with these insane wild ass guesses about like how long it'll take to make 80 characters or this many levels and some gameplay. And then it's just like, if you think about the craziness of that, and then suddenly going, okay, well, let's just do this incredibly creative endeavor with all this amazing gameplay and bug test it and finish it in 2 years, even with this giant team. It's incredibly stressful. And I think that's a lot of what was sucking some, not all, but because I've worked on fantastic teams, but sometimes it's sort of demotivating, because you got a goal, but you're heading towards it in the fucking flaming jalopy that's going to slam into a wall, and you just know in the back of your head it could be so much better. Because you guys know, you play a game and we'll sit here and, like, Boss 101 is a great example, sit and play one night and we're like, wow, it's like it's missing something. What if this one little thing happened, or this other little thing, or example, we were playing the game and we have an escort mission, like a little, you kind of fly with these little baby robos, and they fly behind your guy with a jetpack, Steve and Max. They fly behind him, and they like scream. If you get hit, they scream, and then they get happy if you're flying. Awesome. And I think I was mentioning it to Joshua. I was like, hey, couldn't we have like little pets or something that fly around behind you, like little funny pets? And he's like, yeah, it's really easy. It's the same code. I mean, we could just do that. And I was like, that'd be really funny just to give people pets. I'm sure everybody loves pets. And it fits, we're kind of talking about the scope of the game, and Boss 101 is just so weird and wacky. I was like, yeah, let's just have pets, because we already got a pet, like a cat, a bird sleeping in the command center. Why don't we just let that thing fly around with you? And we're like, well, let's just
that really makes the housekeeping robot, the one with the other room that doesn't go on to the adventures, really feel even worse, because it's just like, no, you have to stay around here. All right, Fido, let's go. Arf!
Exactly. It's so funny is that the stuff like writes itself, because we were thinking the same thing. We're like, okay, what would Rob is the robot that always wants to go on a trip with you, what was he going to think about all that? Like, what's he going to think about if you're taking little weasels and squirrels with you? Like, if it's like you're flying off with these little animals. And it's funny, because when we decided to do the pets and have them in, and they are in now, is we just went all out. I mean, because we started putting them in, and we're like, well, the pets can't just be in a little box, or a little, like, they can't pop up in a little Excel type sheet that you just pick, like, I want a cat, a dog, or whatever, a picture. I mean, they could. That's a very simple way to do it. It's probably the easiest way to do it in terms of our end of work. But we were like, no, man. Pets, they got to sleep outside they got little pet houses and stuff, and they got to sleep outside where they're having fun and they can fly away. They aren't chained down. And we're kind of going in this crazy talk, and we're just like, and it's funny because that's one of those moments where we could just kind of cheese out and say either don't have these things or have them, but do a kind of a low-key version of it. And I just was like, you know what? It's just not, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And we did it. We put in this whole thing called Pet Hill, where you can move around and pick your little pet, and they sleep, and when they see that you're about to pick them, they get all happy. And it's so fun, because it makes the game so much more entertaining when we're working on it, because we know we're doing something that we think, like I think if I got a game like that, I'd be stoked. I'd be like, yeah, I'm putting a lot of work in this thing. Yeah. And I'm not saying that because, hey, it's the game I'm working on, and I am pumped about that, but I also think, like, if I was a consumer and I saw this on Steam, or I saw a video, or I saw a YouTuber, I would want, I think, like, what would make me get excited about the game, and what kind of care and attention would I have? And again, that's part of the staying motivated, because we just keep thinking we're doing stuff that matters. We're not just cheesing this thing out to kind of make some money. We're not just, it isn't really just about the money. We want to earn enough income to continue, but the main goal here is to make something awesome that people.
Yeah, I get excited because I know the features that you've given us updates over the time that we've known you, and I get excited. Like, I was already excited for what you had, And then
Yeah.
when I find out, you're like, well, we added a bunch of more stuff. I'm like, what? More? More?
Yeah,
Fix the other stuff, and then you're like, oh, we already fixed the other stuff.
yeah, we
and
have stuff.
Garrett,
We get a lot.
Garrett in the chat was mentioning how he plays old builds of his games, and it helps motivate him like to see the difference between that and where he's at now. And we kind of do the same thing with the podcast, because occasionally you go back and listen to like the first episode, and you're like, "Holy crap!"
Oh my god!
There's-
We barely knew each other. Like,
Yeah.
That's exactly, that's great motivation, because it's like before and after pictures, right? If you're working out, like, here's me today, here's me a year ago. Like, it's that kind of moment where we look back at some old builds. I think we have builds we have builds all the way back, but like in easy access, we've got at least builds that are a year and a half old, and oh my god, you look at them and we're like, but it's funny at the time, and as it should be at the time, we were like, this is great. Like, we're just like, this is amazing. Look what we've done. And now we go back and look at the old command center and the old way the gameplay is, and oh my god, it's just like, it's night and day. Like, it's so.
By the way, speaking of Garrett,
I was gonna ship this.
So, yeah. Speaking of Garrett, we exhibited his game a little bit earlier. I think before you got in. I'm not sure if you were in the chat or not, but he added hats in his game because of
a
you.
conversation with you.
Oh, really? Yeah. That's awesome. Hats are awesome, man. They're so cool. Like, it's just, the hat thing is so funny too, because the hats were like the pets. I mean, it was just some way to, kind of make some fun little additions. And we went crazy. I mean, we have like an insane amount. I think there's like over almost 300 hats now. There's so many hats in the game, and they're just, we put in hats. You're going to get some. So when you first start the game, you will have an assortment of hats that you can just put on for the fun of it. You'll be able to get a pet right away. There's just a lot of fun things that we sort of ask ourselves, like, well, what's going to be fun for the player, I mean, it's just like, what would we enjoy? We want the game to be a challenge and sort of an engaging story, but at the same time, there's some fun things where we're just like, fuck it, give them a bunch of hats, who cares? Like,
So here's something.
Like, that's what keeps it interesting too.
Yeah.
Is that like, and I remember when because Josh, Rev, and I had this idea for like a free RPG Maker game that we would make that was fun, and we started messing around with it, and I found myself like really investing a lot of time into like creating levels and working out like what's going to happen next. And like there are times where I'm just like, I don't know what I want. I don't have anything that I really want to work on, but I want to still work. And so what I'll do is I'll go over to another thing. I'll just be like, all right, cool. Here are a bunch of text options. And if someone decides to walk the wrong direction and click this a bunch of times, they break into a bank. Awesome. And it's just like the little stuff that is fun for you while you're making something that might be interesting for somebody else to find it. But like it's those little morale boosters of fun in a job that can really make you.
Here's another thing about how to keep yourself motivated too, is something that you do a lot. You don't really do streaming. So I know a lot of people kind of hold themselves accountable by streaming, because it keeps them from getting distracted, and at the same time it makes them feel good when people interact with them, give them feedback. But something that you do is you post a whole lot of blog posts, and you see that seems to keep you motivated in that way, because you get feedback from that way, and it helps other people, and you're just kind of putting your thoughts down on the computer instead of just having them float around out in the atmosphere.
No, that's a huge thing. We a long time ago, when the game started, right when we were kind of in the initial development, I had talked to when we started, all three of us. There's three of us working on Boss 101. Were scattered. We weren't all living in the same place. Even hardly. I think Joshua was in Florida, so he was in the same time zone. But basically, we're all apart. And I felt like, for me personally, and again related to the motivation, it was important to sort of keep the game like in focus of the progress, like you guys are saying. And I said early on, I go, we're going to do 2 updates a week. We're going to do a big game dev update on the weekends, and then we're going to do, a screenshot or some kind of like little development snippet during the week. And for me, just exactly what you just said, Josh, it's like I pretty much was like, this is going to keep me honest, in the sense that and I know this isn't true for every single person that's ever developed a game or written a book or done a painting, but for me on Boss 101, I was like, if we really can't say that we can do 2 updates a week and take that little bit of time, and it's not as much as you think. It's only maybe an hour of our time. And granted, it is an hour more if you're writing a lot, and show some progress, then what are we doing each week? You know, like what is going on? Like, it's like, I just felt like it, and it's something that kind of rallies us all together too, because it's exciting to go over what you did during the week at the end of the week and go, oh yeah, that's right, we put all that crap in. Like, this is amazing. I forgot all about that. And you know, you take some screenshots, and you're sort of, I think what it does, it's the phenomenon that I think anybody has had when somebody comes and looks over your shoulder at what you're doing. There's this moment of transition where it's almost like you're seeing the product through their eyes, and you suddenly see what it really is, versus your own internal filters of like, everything I do is awesome, everything I do is perfect. And when I go back and I do the weekend write-ups, it's like that. I kind of look at it, I end up looking at it through somebody else's eyes. I sort of, because as soon as I think, oh god, this is going to be out and everybody's going to see the screenshots and the thing, and I go, you know, I'll start talking about some weird thing, and I'll go, that isn't interesting. If I was really wanting to learn how to, these guys are making the game, I would care more about, you know, the basic, some of the animation setup. So I wouldn't mind, you know, showing, you know, wacky game dev stuff, or another kind of combat animation or a combat GIF or something like that. That's all fine, but at the same time, like, there's so much other fun stuff going on behind the scenes that I mean, maybe people are interested, maybe they aren't. I don't know. We've done, I think, like you guys, like, I think there's about 100 and something updates up now, weekend updates. So that's a lot. I mean, that's one every weekend for 2 years almost, or maybe a little over 2 years, but it's a lot of updates, and there's a lot. I mean, if you could easily document the Boss 101 dev cycle on that thing. That's crazy. But yeah, it's exactly what you said. It was just because it's for every other developer out there. I mean, whether they read it or not, we're doing it mostly, not just for people that are interested in the game, but like a developer that kind of goes, how, you know, what are these guys doing week to week, or what's happening week to week? And I think a lot of times it may seem like not a lot, but you know, we always find something that's significant, because there always is some significant. The needle moves. The term I like to use is, what moved the needle this week? Like, what moved our needle towards completion? You know, what's bringing it farther along? And I normally pick what I think is maybe one of the more significant things, but it is a motivator, right? Because, you know, you're writing at the end of the week, and you're like, oh my god. And it sounds stupid, because sometimes it's Wednesday, and I'm like, what am I going to write on the weekend update, man? What are they? You know, it's like, what are we going to talk about? Like, but then that comes to you, and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. There's these things on this list. I mean, just like you're saying, there's, you know, people mention in the chat a to-do list. Another thing is very helpful is to organize yourself. I mean, that's clear. It's just, it sounds so pedantic to say these kind of things, but they're true. We use scheduling software for Boss 101. It's just a giant to-do list, really. It's hand-soft. It's free. I mean, the size of our team, it's free. You can purchase it. I used it when I was at Vigil, and I was at Sony. I think they used it. But it's this giant corporate scheduling software. It's very dumbed down, very simple to use. It sounds like it's intimidating, but it's really not. It's just a to-do list, and we just list everything out that we can, and just start checking things off, and it's great. You know, you just check. It's like,
well, it feels good when you do that, right? Like, just be like, yeah.
It's fantastic. And it's just, it helps to have some sense of, even if it's wrong. And this leads me to my next thing, which I think is one of the biggest things about, you know, staying motivated, is that when we start scheduling, the first estimates you make and the first guesses you make as to what's going to make your game amazing, I'm almost willing to bet they're all wrong, in the sense that it's going to evolve as you play. And you guys are talking about your game that you wanted to make, and RPG Maker. A lot of times you just let the game talk to you. You know, you play it and you realize it needs something else, or it wants, you know, it seems like it's missing something. And I think one thing is to not be afraid to let the game change, and not be afraid to say, well, let's add something or adjust it. Because I don't know anybody that could really sit down and just whole cloth develop a game in their head, write it on a schedule, and then perfectly execute that schedule. I don't know any game that ever came out like that. I don't know any book or creative endeavor that ever came out like that. Maybe Mozart wrote his stuff like, there's probably a few geniuses across time that have done it that way, but for the most of us, we kind of suck, and we just have to take a beating and just go through the iterations, and it's just, that's it, you know. But you'll do it. I mean, it's not impossible. It's just the thought that you're gonna, you know, it's this idea of this perfect game is gonna come out of your head, and except maybe Tetris. Like, I don't know, I can't think of many games that probably
that went through its iterations.
Yeah.
That the one that we saw that became popular, that was like the 5th version of that game that he had made.
Yeah. Well, here's one: Flappy Bird.
Oh.
four lines of code that he crapped out and it made him millions. So there you go.
Yeah, but then even that guy short-circuited because he took his game down because he couldn't believe the success. He even denied his own success. Like, he couldn't even believe himself.
Like, what is wrong with you people?
Because I think there's something inherently inside people where they really feel that, the work has to be justified versus a success. Like, when you see somebody win a lottery, the immediate reaction is they're lucky. You don't, because it is a lucky thing at that place. The Flappy Bird thing, there's a sense of that guy was lucky more than he was skilled. But when you see like Valve or Nintendo take years and years and years to develop a game, you feel that work there, and there's some justification for the success there where you go, okay, it sold 10, 20 million or whatever amount, but you feel like they really put in the sweat to make that good. It wasn't a lucky decision when Half-Life 2 came out. It was, they held on to it, and Nintendo does that all the time too. I mean, Blizzard is another example. It probably holds on.
Bungie is a fantastic one.
Well, Hearthstone was actually kind of lucky.
Hearthstone, Hearthstone was certainly based off of their ethic. They didn't just wing it. I mean, if you play Hearthstone, it has all the Blizzard touches of the UI is amazing. And
but just the fact that it was like some employees were like, you know what, I just feel like making this, and then all of a sudden it just blew up because Blizzard was like, you know what, that is a good idea, so let's make it a real thing. And then they worked on it, obviously, with all the hard work, but the initial thought was kind of lucky. But yeah, David in the chat was mentioning Robert Heinlein. Is that how you pronounce it? Heinlein. About he said he wrote his first story and sold it in one go. I don't know the guy, but maybe you do.
Yeah,
Starship Troopers.
Very, very famous writer.
Starship Troopers?
Yeah.
I don't know the writer. That I know the movie, but I don't know the writer.
Oh, sorry. Some of us read. It's a
Oh,
hobby.
I read, but not movie books.
It wasn't a movie book. Oh my god. Josh, you're killing me.
Adaptation of Starship, or the book adaptation of the movie.
Garrett makes a good point.
Well, there's book adaptations of games.
Yeah. Garrett has a good point in the chat. Being an indie dev is a reverse stealth game. You're trying to be noticed.
Yeah, it is. Well, and then also there's Namco's is saying, Valve's in the public eye, and so. But you know what? All those guys weren't in the public eye at first. Nobody. It's easy to look at Blizzard now and say, well, after the fact, they're always successful because they have all this money and stuff. But they didn't always, And when I worked at Interplay in the 90s, Blizzard was not really. I mean, Warcraft 2 had just come out and it was popular, but Blizzard wasn't this like unstoppable juggernaut. That really was around.
No.
Oh, they were still. Were they indie then, or like technically indie?
Everybody was indie then.
But well, you know what I mean. Like, or were they owned by a bigger company? I wasn't sure.
No, they weren't. And I had gone to the E3 that Blizzard showed the first version of StarCraft at, which was basically a retextured, recolored Warcraft 2 with the tiles, and they didn't really. It wasn't very pretty, and it was pretty ugly. And I remember they showed it at E3. And the reaction was almost universally negative. Everybody was like, this looks like some shit-ass version of Warcraft 2. We hate you, we hate you, we hate you. We're going to kill you. You're gonna die. We're never going to buy another Blizzard.
Internet.
They were just so brutal. This was even kind of a little... Internet was around.
Internet? Yeah.
It was when they had pigeons and dinosaurs, and we were just like flying notes around, but it was sort of like... Blizzard did say, okay, it sucks. You're right, it sucks. We looked at it too. We agree, it sucks. We're not going to release it. And then they turned around and waited a little bit and put StarCraft out, and the one that we know, the first StarCraft that we know, and everybody fucking lost their minds. And they were like, again, it's easy to think of it now as like you're looking back at all the greats, at their choices versus against their successes, and kind of tracing it back. But you don't see all the branching parts where they had a chance to go kind of chintzy, or they could have released that version of StarCraft. I don't know that it would have done very well, but it would have been a hit on their reputation, I'm sure. Wait, somebody's asking a question.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts on hits-based business model? You know what? I don't know. There is the only company I think that has a cyclical hit-based business. I mean, obvious one.
Zynga.
I don't even know Zynga has got that anymore. They used to. They tried to. But think about this: there's only one real model I think of that you can consistently make a game a year because it's just a known quantity. And that's the sports games. I really think
Or
EA
Call of Duty.
Call of Duty, but even Call of Duty, they have two studios. Well, even EA's got multiple studios working on like FIFAs and different things. But you're right, Call of Duty is sort of. They've even gone crazy now. They've fucking got Star Wars going on in the game. It's like, I saw the latest trailer and I was like, what the hell's going on in that game? It looked great though. I mean, awesome. But when you try and make a game just and say it's going to be a hit, which is exactly how a lot of publishers pick games, because they just think, well, unless this game sells 3 million units, it isn't going to justify the cost of development. So they look at it backwards. They say, well, we need to sell this many units. What can we pick that will get us to that? And then they look around at what's popular and they think, okay, this game here sold 5 million, this sold 10 million. Some blend between the two should sell 7. And I mean, that is exactly the logic. It's exactly what you would expect. There's no mystery there. It's just them going.
The problem comes from them milking it then, like Assassin's Creed.
Exactly.
But the other thing though is that, I mean, the indie scene has changed the AAA scene a bit, because now there's companies like Ubisoft who have, quote, indie studios creating. They give them a small budget for them, give them a name, and then say make something creative and indie looking, and then you get something of Valiant Hearts, which is a good game. Or something like that, which in they're good games, but or Life is Strange is another one, but they're not really indie in my opinion. But that is an example of the indie community kind of changing that mindset of the hits business model, I think.
Yeah, well, they've gotten away because I think people got so, I wouldn't say tired, but just like anything else, having the diversity in subject matter of games is a good thing. It's not every game can be a 10 million seller. It's not possible. Like, it's not easily possible, I should say. Maybe it is in some universe, but you're right. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, people that, when you have Ubisoft or EA sponsor some small group of people, 10 or whatever, and give them a couple $1 million or whatever amount of money and say, hey, make a game, and it's a low risk for them. Whatever, if they want to call themselves indie, that's fine. I know that to them maybe it's a marketing term, but I think when I think of indie, I think of closer to like maybe what we're doing here, which is we're on our own money. We're not kickstarted. We're not early access. We're just spending our own money making a game we love. And the reasoning behind that is, at least for me personally, internally, is if what we're doing can't sell under those conditions, then maybe it wasn't that good to begin with, or maybe it wasn't. So it puts all the incentive on us to make a game that is going to be as good as we can possibly make it, versus having it. Again, I've worked at big companies where when your paycheck's coming in and I know it sounds crazy because it's a safety net, right? You're like, I can go get that giant, huge 80-inch TV. Like, I don't care. I'm getting a paycheck next week. But when you think like, if this game doesn't sell, I'm going to be eating my shoes. It's like there's a completely different motivation. And it's funny, you'd think that I'd have the mindset of just make anything that sells, but that is exactly the mindset I don't have, because I really know that isn't what sells. Like, I know just crapping something out is not the way to go, because this is just my experience in games, is that big companies who have actually less to lose tend to take the much more cutthroat approach and just make something that sells. They want to return. They want 11% back. I mean, that's kind of that's better than, that's like kind of an average investing return that people expect. Somewhere between 10 and 20 is considered pretty good. And if you can get better than that, then you've got a hit on your hands in terms of a company. You're doing really, really well. So if you put in $1 million, you get back $1.5 million. That's a pretty good investment for a company's time. Depending on the time range. If that's a 100-year development cycle, okay, maybe that isn't so good. But if it's like, relatively speaking, if it's a 10 or 20% return, that's considered pretty good. But those hit companies, God, they make what does GTA make, like $1 billion? It probably costs $300 million. So I mean that's 300-400%. That's really good. I mean that's still really really good, but their budget's so freaking enormous. Like it's unbelievable. Wait, somebody's saying something. So what about a really rich person that subs all the work out, but does it? Well, I mean, if somebody is okay, let's say there's some like really rich dude that or female, guy or girl that says, I just want to hire a bunch of devs to execute my idea. I mean, that's kind of what Miyamoto does, isn't it? Isn't he a really rich dude that just has a gigantic squad?
I didn't think of it
isn't
that way.
Isn't that Kojima actually does that now too, doesn't he?
What?
Kojima does that now too, doesn't he?
Yeah, but they're I mean, they probably aren't as literally hands off as they're just like barking out orders or something like that, you know, or Chris Roberts, somebody said in the chat. But yeah, it's however it gets done. I think that the main thing, if you're on a team, and this is just my outlook on a team, and as a team goes around, is that I look at it as everybody needs to be on board with the goal. Like you can't really have just a bunch of hands that you treat like that. Like in other words, though you execute my ideas, I don't really want to hear from you, because you've got this team of people that arguably, if they're on game making, they're interested in games too, and they've got ideas. You know, the best ideas I think in Boss 101, I hardly think they came from me. I think they came from the fusion of all three of us working together and bouncing ideas off each other. And you know, a lot of times, you know, Joshua and Manon, they've got fantastic ideas. And they see things a lot clearer than I do. You know, in terms of, you know, they can separate themselves from my ideas, and I can separate myself from their ideas and just look at it very objectively. Yeah, I think if we're talking like a person that just barks out orders and says do this, throws an idea over a fence and expects it to be made, yeah, that's probably a recipe for failure. I think if you're saying, you know, you've got a collaborative situation going on, like I said, a Miyamoto or a Kojima or something, where I bet that guy's in there, you know, grabbing the controller every day, like, let's play what I just talked about, and he brings the crew around. Everybody has to understand where you're heading. You know, they've got to see that clear vision, and you've got to be able to explain it. I think for me, when we're working in the collaboration, I don't try to explain. I try to explain as little about what literally I want to happen versus the spirit of what I'm going for. Because I figure even if we don't execute exactly literally what I wanted, if we hit the spirit, in other words, we make it fun, or it's supposed to, like, you know, the pets are supposed to be charming. It's like, who cares? I mean, in my mind, maybe a bunny is charming and a little like cute fluffy dog is charming for a pet. But you know, when Manon made him, she just made like a funny little whale and some flying fish and little dragons, and I was like, these are great, these are charming, because they hit the goal. They were like, my idea was not exactly what she executed, but the spirit of what we wanted got done. So it was like so pleasant. It was so great to work with that. I mean, that made it fun for me. It's like I don't know. I feel like you got to be willing to step back a little and say, let somebody else drive for a while, or kind of come up with amazing ideas, because dude, people are geniuses. I mean, really.
Well, and I think part of it is the ability, the genius of being able to recognize when somebody else's idea is better. That plays a really large role in that. Being able to step back and go, oh yeah, no, that one fits better in this case. So. Oh yeah,
and the ability to sort of create an environment, you know, even with yourself, to acknowledge that maybe it isn't so perfect, that what you're doing isn't the best thing, or listen to critiques and kind of sort through because sometimes a person looking at your stuff can be critical have the right idea about being critical, but what they're saying is, you know, maybe hurtful, or maybe it's something that you don't want to hear right now, or it's something you're not into, and you kind of like, you want to kind of reject the whole thing. You're like, I don't even want to hear what this guy's got to say, or this critic's got to say. But you know, if you're open to it, it's important. You know, it's important to be able to hear that stuff. And like you're saying, they sometimes have really good points. You know, they are the consumer. You know, that a lot of times you're listening to the consumer. You know, there's always that another famous thing that always people talk about is that for every one person that complains, there's probably 50 that are out there thinking like them. But, you know, there's also the silent majority that just like your game and they don't even say anything. You know, they're just like, yeah, this is fine, I don't care. You know, so you kind of got to balance all that, but that's why you just got to do your best. Don't try and like follow the consumer. Go with what you love. Just make it. You'll get burned otherwise. Great.
All right. Well, we are Pretty much done.
Motivated.
With that and motivated. So thank you so much, Tim.
You should be motivated. Go make your game now. Why don't you guys make your game? When am I going to see that? Are you guys still working on that?
Well, IRX,
we're working on something different, but but IRX has been the main.
We're working
focus,
on something
so
much
there'll
more.
There'll be information in a few months.
We're working on something.
We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you about it.
Much more. What's the word?
Real,
in depth, and
legitimate, in depth. Yeah.
Legitimate. Look at you, Mr. Self-deprecating.
This is gonna be a good game, assuming we can pull it off. Let's put it that way.
Pull it off. It's just assuming you want to put in time to pull it off. That's really it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What's up next? Tell me what's up next.
Up next, some live gameplay.
Yep, live gameplay coming up
And,
next. There is a
Gotta
poll.
vote for,
Poll in chat. Vote for the game that you want to see live gameplay of right now. We're going to give it a little bit of time to just kind of stretch your legs if you want to, and that sort of stuff. I kind of have to go to the bathroom. So, again, thank you, Tim, for the sticking around and talking to us. And are you staying in the chat, or are you going to do some Boss 101 stuff?
I'm working on Boss 101 stuff, but I'll be in the chat.
Okay.
I'm putting a contact. If anybody wants to, you can just mail me at hello@Donley Time Foundation if you want.
Yes.
Or wherever. I mean, you guys have posted a bunch of my links and stuff all around. Actually, unbelievably, you want to hear a crazy story? When I did not, here's another example of motive. I did not come up with the name Boss 101. That was my friend Joe. The game was originally called Jetpack. Terrible name. I mean, it's terrible in the sense if you go into Google and type Jetpack, there's like it's like 1,000 things. Just like, what the fuck is this? Nobody's ever going to find the game. And I remember talking to him, and I was like, he's asking what the game was about, and I said, well, Boss. And he's like, why don't you call it Boss 101, like, Wizard 101 or Pirate 101 or something crap like that. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a great idea. What a great idea. And so that day, and I'm not kidding you, I went home after lunch with him, went into, what is it, like GoDaddy or something, typed in boss101.com. And it said the ownership of Boss 101 was about to expire because it had been 2 years or something since somebody had gotten it. So it was going to expire in 2 days, and if the person had not renewed it yet. Basically, so here, let me set it up straight. It had actually expired a month before, but they had a grace period that was about to expire. So it was 2 days from that grace period expiring, and that person had not renewed it. And I'm kidding you not. I was up at midnight that night, like with my little finger on the Boss 101 thing. And when that shit came available 2 days later, I bought it $7. It's like I was like,
you know what would be really messed up is like that guy's like, oh well, I can finally afford Boss 101 and I can finally work towards my dreams. What?
Jetpack is now this other clown is, so I was like totally just
yeah. Also, I know that we're starting to wrap things up. Tim, Chubby Kitten in the chat wants to know if there was a time during the development of Boss 101 when you questioned whether or not you could even continue.
I think there was not that I couldn't continue. There wasn't that. There was more like, I think the only question I've really had during the development has been, what is it going to take to be the complete game we've seen from the beginning, when we started. And I think that's been the biggest challenge, is sort of being able to like see the end of the game, which we can see now. The questioning part is there's been a few days where I was like, looking at the stack of frozen tilapia and going like, okay, is this going to last until the end of the game? Like, are we gonna have enough like frozen tortillas and tilapia to last to the end of the game? There's been a little bit of that, but most of it is just, it's been so fun and I'm enjoying it. I think that because I'm enjoying it so much and it's such a great people to work with, Joshua and Manon are so fantastic to work with, and I've really tried to make it as an ideal situation as I can. So I go outside, I have walks, I hang out with friends, I take breaks when I need to. I just keep reminding myself that like so few people can engage in this kind of lifestyle that I should, really treasure it for what it is. It's been a very humbling experience, I'll tell you that. When I was making a little more money than I am now, a lot more money really, but I didn't have the perspective I do now. Now I'm like, I'll go outside and I'll, you see a little bug crawling on grass, I'll be like, that's the most beautiful thing on God's earth. Then I'll see like a cloud float by, and I'll be like, oh, the beauty of nature, everything is so wonderful. I can't believe this life is around. It's just the whole perspective of life has changed for me. Like before, I'd be in my car driving places. Get there, I don't care. Now, like walk places, I'm like, hey everybody, hey, what's going on? Look, a little squirrel. This is great. It's like everything is just completely different now. So yeah, it's just you just gotta like. You gotta love what you're doing, and it is a very humbling experience. I mean, nothing kicks you in the pants more than when you're doing game development like this. It's like, oh God, how'd I do this? It's fun though. It's been a blast. So anyway, I hope that answers the questions.
Well, thank you so much, Tim. We'll let you get back to work on Boss 101, but if you're going to be in a chat, or email him, you can ask him some more questions, all that sort of stuff.